Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another day filled with amazing women as we begin to explore the gender data gap and the startup ecosystem, where we start changing aha moments into actionable change. Before we get started, I'd like to say a little bit of tribute to the land that I'm actually standing on. Collingwood resides within the territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Saugeen First Nation, and is home to many Indigenous people, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe. Welcome, ladies. This is an exceptional day because today we're actually talking about incubators and accelerators. And for those who don't really know what incubators and accelerators are, they really take place at two very different stages of a company. So incubators, well, it's exactly like what it sounds. It takes that egg and helps it flourish into a little chick. And that's what it does. It takes a company, it takes a founder before they really even they've got their little napkin, and helps it flourish into an ideation, I think it's called. And then at the accelerator, they kind of pick up where the incubators left off, and they help to grow that business and guide that business. Teresa and myself, we're actually in Founder Institute, so we'll be putting on that hat of somebody who is actively in an incubator right now, representing Founder Institute, which is a global organization that sits they kind of stem both incubators and accelerators. But before we get too much into that, I'd like to introduce Mansi Gupta and Shay Hardy, who are two amazing women from Holland and from India. So Mansi, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first.
Thank you, Cindy, for your brief introduction and giving the opportunity to talk actually on this podcast. So I would like to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Mansi, and I am a management consultant with approximately 2 years experience in strategy and operations, and I have been given the opportunity to mentor more than 25 startups on how we can build and scale them within the global markets. So I have been offering business development services like sales, building marketing plans, scouting the right strategic partners, and maybe connecting and positioning with them, the startups with possible investors. Currently, as we speak, I head global programs at Turning Idea Ventures, where I conceptualize and execute global programs, which basically helps global startups to set up and scale in India, and likewise support Indian startups who want to expand into international markets. That's a brief overview of myself. I would love to connect with you all and know more about the startup ecosystem. Cindy, I think you are on mute.
Oh my gosh, and it was so good too. Now, and Turning Ideas Ventures, actually, you work with Startup India as well a little bit, right?
Yeah, yes, we work closely with the Startup India, which is a non-profit organization promoted and encouraged by Government of India in terms of promoting and helping startups from pretty much every stage. So from idea to growth stage, we work very closely with other international trade agencies like Business Finland, Israeli trade agencies, COSME, which is a Korean startup center, and help them in terms of identifying the right global countries for Indian startups and supporting global companies to set up and scale in India.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Shay, you are in Holland and you have started up an incubator, I believe, for women. I'd love to hear a little bit more about you.
Actually, it's an accelerator, but I'll share a little more. I'm originally from New York and born and raised. As you can tell, I'm very proud about that. And I live in the Netherlands. I run a social enterprise called Empowerment Foundation, and one of the programs within it is Winnovate, which is our soon-to-be accelerator program for women in STEM. I've been doing gosh, I've been doing work in human resources and communications, and always working with finance organizations or technology organizations. So I really have an affinity for tech. And I love helping people with their careers. It's really one of my ambitions, is to see everybody working in jobs that are fulfilling for them. And as I was doing that, I started finding that we wanted to help people who are unemployed and get them back to work as well. And the story goes on and on. I'll save it for later.
And I think that's a really important part right now, is that with the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more people coming out and starting up their own businesses, but they're floundering a bit because they don't know where to go. And honestly, I think that the incubator and accelerator scene is a very welcoming community, because they've done it before. You're surrounded by mentors that have looked at this from that entrepreneurial angle before. They have the tools, they have the support network and system set up. On that support system and network, part of your entrepreneurial journey, we kind of talk about one story, but what's the real reason you started on your entrepreneurial journey? And I'll just actually kind of, every entrepreneur has an origin story. What is your true origin story? And Mansi, I'll start with you.
So I think I got quite lucky in terms of doing that. So I never had a thought in my mind that of, starting an entrepreneur or maybe helping other entrepreneurs. But maybe I should say destiny came into me or whatever. And I got this opportunity to do internship at this wonderful accelerator program, and there they saw me the potential and the kind of work that I was doing, which actually boosted my inner confidence and gave me the strength and helped me in self introspect in terms of what greater potential I can achieve of. But I would like to take this opportunity to um, tell something more about some statistics that I gathered about the women entrepreneurs within India. So approximately 58% of the female entrepreneurs were in the range of age from 20 to 30 when they started out. And nearly 73% of them reported a revenue of approximately 10 lakhs, which is more than 100 million, 100,000 US dollars in a financial year. And approximately 57% of these women started out solo, that is without any member. And 35% of these women had a co-founder. But more interesting fact is roughly 71% of the Indian female entrepreneurs employ only 5 people or less. So that's a shocking statistics that I found while,
Those are
studying.
very shocking numbers, and we have to kind of wonder how that's changed through the pandemic as well, how drastically it's changed. I know in Canada here, we saw a drop from 4% of female founders being funded down to 2% of female founders being funded, which is a scary stat. Shay, for you, what is your origin story?
For me, I kind of got thrown into it. I always knew I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think when you're first starting out, I think most people with their careers, unless they have like a real specific career path that they want to take, they kind of let whatever comes to them go along with it. And I was made redundant in the Netherlands, where I don't have any family at that time. I still don't have any family technically. And I felt like this is the moment to do something different and to actually go after the thing that I wanted to go after, which is starting my own business. And I was lucky in that I had a strong enough network that I went right into consulting and did some projects. And then I realized this isn't quite running my own business. I really want to start my own thing. And I met 2 other women, and we co-founded our nonprofit, which just kind of snowballed into bigger and better things. But in between, like any entrepreneurial journey, it's this up-down thing where you change and it's like a roller coaster. It really is. You go up, you go down, you turn left, you turn right, and you just keep finding your way until you get to that place where you want to be.
And it is that big journey, isn't it? So Teresa and I are going to be speaking, as I mentioned, on behalf of Founder Institute and talk a little bit about our experiences. So to do that, we'll just set the ground with our own origin stories. So Teresa, can you share your origin story, please?
Oh mine to Shay's point, I kind of fell into it, I suppose. I got busy with the meetup scene, got involved in hackathons and different type of events, became renowned, according to other people, for my connecting people and ideas. Several companies have started because I've connected some people and they've went off and I've done wonderful things and hiring people. I'm about people getting a job, a roof over the head, a family, etc. I want to be that tipping point. So the more I got involved in this hackathons and events, I got picked up by IBM to do ecosystem development, which then further facilitated me into the investor world with York Angel Investors and investment groups. And I loved the energy and the like-mindedness. I was, that brain candy that I need. And so that facilitated further, which now led me into this journey with you, Cindy. And then I want to be, again, the tipping point to make companies happen, not flounder. And I want to be that fork in the road where it will happen, not maybe.
And that's one of the biggest things I appreciate about Teresa is she's not, don't talk about things in the possibility side of things. Make it happen. Talk about, use your vernacular needs to change to match your enthusiasm. So it is not, I'm thinking about doing this. I might get to this. Do it. Just say, I am changing the world. I am making a difference. And this is how I'm going to do it. And this is my path to go to. And then find that partner, find that co-founder, find that incubator, find that accelerator that will be your support system to be able to take that maybe away. So just a little bit about myself. My entrepreneurial journey started very young, to where I was very creative as a child. Anything that I could pick up and create into something artistic, I did. Anything I could find around the house, I sold. I was politely asked to leave the Girl Guides because I was charging all of the girls their dues, as so that they didn't have their dues to pay to the organization. But that would have been the first entrepreneurial experience that I had. I also started my first. I started my first business, registered business, when I was in high school, sculpting ice cream. Yes, that's sculpting ice cream like people would sculpt ice. The company was registered as Frozen Euphoria, and the tagline was "Freeze the Experience." I did have that marketing mind back then. Some of my cakes were selling for upwards of $500 back then. You could think that's a long time ago. I'm actually turning 50 this year. Ageism, forget it. CEO, that was my age in my head, was 50 was going to be, that's the age to be a CEO. So I'm proud of that age. So I went on, my mom was a database guru. She worked on the old mainframes with the punch cards. So I've never known life without a computer, more so I've never known life without being able to work virtually. My mom worked at home in the middle of the night because she kind of runs 24/7 with a suction cup modem and an analog phone line. I actually moved from there. I designed my first database for Auto Trader magazine, collections database. It was simple, but it worked. I can say I did it. And I developed my first learning management system for a bank and a brokerage company, Nesbitt Burns Bank of Montreal. So I've kind of navigated both the creative and the technical side. I've been in and out of businesses for quite a long time. I have never been hired for a traditional position. So I've basically been brought in and said, well, I'm not really sure what your title is, but here's the stuff that you have to do. I've been brought into places because I think differently. I do not think inside a box. Anything that boxes me is just a new challenge for me to get out of. I've been clean tech, law tech, education, technology, fintech. I think I mentioned that. Anyways, a long stream of techs, because tech is my favorite. And now through the last number of years as a mentor, judge, and speaker, and that's led to Linking Ventures, which we started January 1st. And we are a valuations platform for early stage technology startups that are raising seed and Series A. The difference with this valuation, I've been trained in traditional valuations, and there's nothing really there that to stick to when you get an early stage technology startup. So you don't have that revenue, you don't have something to price out to sell a company. So we actually give you an iterative process that is gender informed. And what I mean by gender informed is that you're able to realize that both men and women are going to be using your service or product differently. So build that into a company when they're very malleable. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. And my goodness, I went on a little bit of a whirlwind there. I want to know who your biggest supporter is. And Mansi, we'll start with you.
I think when we talk about my biggest support, I would, so it's not because we are in discussion with gender data gap, but I feel my mother, because she has been the one support system for whole family, and she's been the backbone. And although she has never been started any entrepreneurial journey, but she has supported not only his husband, but his father and his brothers, everyone. So she is a jar full of knowledge, and she can pretty much have every tip and tricks to solve any problem. So she'll come up with, we call it in a Hindi word, jugaad, which basically means any tactic to just solve the problem and get ahead of it. And I think I have learned more and more, not only about entrepreneur but in life general, from her, and I owe it to her.
And I think that's one of the words that's going to stay with me. So Jagar, is that how you pronounce it? What an empowering word.
That's jugaad, which basically means solving any problem with the least amount of resources that is available to you, and getting it done in a fastest as possible.
That's spectacular. And Shay, how about for you? Who is your biggest supporter?
For me, I've had different supporters at different stages, different chapters. So I can't really put it on one person. Always my husband, he's a big supporter, but I had to get him there. Like, this is going to work. Don't worry. This is all going to work out. Yeah, I do. And because I come from a coaching background, I believe also the coaches that have helped me through different stages of my career were also big supporters, guidance, soundboards, things like that.
That's spectacular. And Teresa, for you.
Wow, the list. My family, my husband, my mother. When everyone says, like, how do you do what you do? I says, well, I just learned from my mom at church, things like that in the community. As being an Italian immigrant, they depended on each other, and you needed something, you all got together. And I see her doing this through my childhood, through our religious community. And I think it just organically came out of me from my mother. So kudos to her. And then falling into the network, the meetup scene, and that then further facilitated the people around me who gave me that encouragement. I remember going to one event and someone said, I had been there only once before, and says, oh, hi, Teresa, nice to see you again. I was floored. So surround yourself around that community. If it's not that person now, find that next person. You find that right energy, move on.
And I
answered your question.
No, you did. And so I've got an amazing support system through family and friends as well. My mother, obviously, I mentioned her at the very beginning in terms of the technology side. And, I often saw her working tirelessly and then having her boss and even somebody younger than her come in and take credit for the work that she's done. And we've navigated that process. And I did see it through that lens. And that's definitely something that I want to get into. And we have somebody here. I don't know if she'd like to come on, but Sarah had an experience with Founder Institute. And one of the things that we really want to address here is how to create a supportive environment for women. And from our experience, Teresa and I are right brand new into Founder Institute in Toronto, and we don't have any female mentors that have spoken at all yet. There is one woman on the mentor list that we're allowed to reach out to for office hours. So we end up going to Silicon Valley, where they have that nice mix of mentors, but here in Toronto, there isn't. And Sarah's experience is from Austin, Texas. Sarah, would you be willing to come in and chat for a second? Because what I want to do is be able to talk about the lens. So the lens that we're looking at, I have one lens. Everybody has one lens. What part of that lens then are we missing? And Sarah, I've kind of brought you in as well.
Sure.
Because I want to hear a little bit about your experience with an incubator. It's good to have both sides of the story. We're not about trying to cover things up here. We're about identifying areas that need to change. And then by the end of this, we're going to be affecting that change. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about your experience then with them. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
Sure. So I have an MBA from the University of Texas at Austin, and I had a chance to actually work for a very large company on a strategic initiative. So mainly in intrapreneurship and working at a startup within a large company. And so I was definitely fascinated about that and took a lot of classes on about entrepreneurship. So, I've always known that I wanted to have my own business. And so, I participated in one incubator focused on women, mainly to actually license IP from Texas State University. And it was run by women, and it was a great opportunity. But obviously the women that were further advanced, that already had an idea, obviously got a lot more out of it rather than the folks that actually didn't have an idea and were kind of limping along. And then I had an idea years later and decided, that Founder Institute probably was a good, obviously the deadline was near, everything kind of aligned, but I really didn't research a lot about Founder Institute. So I found the format of Founder Institute a little bit too testosterone oriented. It's very, very competitive. Basically, you're being graded every time you pitch. And, if you don't get, a certain grade, you're out. And so, again, a lot of the folks that actually had already participated were the ones that were passing, the grades, because they had already gotten so much more exposure and feedback from the mentors. But what was apparent to me was like, I was a woman and I was obviously focused on something for a women service. And I absolutely got, glazed eyes every time I pitched. And I was like, and one of the comments was, well, I'm a man, I would find this service helpful. And I was like, oh, cool. But it was me obviously positioning something for women only. And so I felt a lot of resistance. So what if you want, what if a man wants to have that service? That's great, but if you want, to have only a women offering, then, what's the big deal? I mean, we are, and as you ladies have said, 50% of the market. So if I want to, pick a target market or a niche market, obviously women are not a niche market, but, if I want to pick, 50-year-old women, who cares? There's a huge market opportunity. So I think, and to the point that I made on the chat is, you really have to find an incubator that is focused either on your area or on, the type of entrepreneur that you are or something, in order to get the right level of support. And obviously Founder Institute has many different chapters. Obviously there is a Slack channel for Founder Institute women, but at least the women that had participated in Founder Institute in Austin before I had participated actually observed, had the same observation. So it was not, obviously mentors change. So,
and I think that's a really good point to kind of thank you so much, Sarah. And I think that's a really good, important part that we need to kind of explore, is how to build that support system and how to look before you get into these incubators and accelerators to make sure that they are your community. And I think that's a great jumping board to the next question, which is our lenses. I have a different lens than any of you might have. And this one, I'm going to be focusing just on Mansi and Shay. What part of your lens is my lens missing? In terms of gender, what parts are there religious? Are there cultural? What pieces of the lens do we need to add in to be able to have that bigger scope or that bigger picture? Shay, we'll go with you first.
That's a very good question. I'm trying to think. Something about what Sarah said just made me, I think, is somewhat related. The accelerators and incubators that are out there today are just looking from one lens. And there's nothing wrong with competition. I'm a competitive person. I love sports. I love it. But that's not the only way, and to bring in, even for men, collaboration is a skill that they enjoy just as much as just as much as competition, sorry. I think what we're often missing in our terms of our lenses is that we'd like to naturally as humans, we like to put people in boxes because it's easier. It's easier to know, like, if you're in this box and I know you're a man and this is how I'm supposed to treat you. The reality is you might be a man who has, a lot of, very much in touch with your feminine side. And you're looking for something else. So if we could just use the lens of not putting people in a box, if that makes any sense, and just looking at us as more as individuals, or more as, individuals that like this and individuals that like this, instead of men from Canada all act this way. Women from New York all act this way. African-American women all act this way, all think this way. Indian women that live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, think this way. And you're like, no, not really. So to think of the lens, I think that even that is more nuanced. People are more complicated than just one way.
It is. And that's the visual that we have, is that lens that kind of sits out in front of us and how we kind of view things. And we had a very, for me, quite prolific way of looking at things yesterday in one of our panels. And it was about taking your beliefs and putting them out in front of you, just to look at them as assumptions. So it gives you a different perspective of your own beliefs. And what that does is it gives you a beautiful array of how you're influenced and how your beliefs actually might be looked at from the other side of that lens, right? Mansi, from your perspective.
Can I just add one little thing? There's something that really bothered me about Sarah's conversation, that they were telling her, well, I'm a man and I like your product. I mean, that's just marketing 101. You niche, and yeah, you might attract other people, but that doesn't stop you from niching. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's just, sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Mansi.
No, I completely agree. So breaking the stereotypes, stop, creating labels and labeling them people. That's the most frustrating part. I mean, if we talk about everyone wants more gender diversity, whether it's a startup founder, an investor, a hiring manager of a large company, or even a government official, everybody agrees in theory that more women on board is a great idea. But why are there so few women, not just in the workforce, but even in our startup ecosystem? I mean, if we talk about today, women are still not taken seriously as entrepreneurs. We are venture splained to and subjected to, more intense and preventive questioning that squashes the ambitions, that chips away our mindset and actually question our own abilities. So this doesn't make sense at all. And if we want to see what can be done to bridge this gender gap, so personally, I have some, made some, did some self introspection, and I found out that some of the best possible ways is incentivizing investments in women-led startups, like government-led funds or funds currently providing essential capital to maybe venture capital or private equity firms, which in turn is invested in these emerging startups. And second is,
Really critical.
yeah,
Yes, sorry.
second is women quotas for new digital universities, because another challenge that startup face is shortage of talent, especially when it comes to women. So one of the main reasons why we aren't able to bridge that gender gap is, even if we wish to, is getting encouraging more women to enroll in new digital universities which can help them build capabilities and widen their talent pool available for the startup founders as well, to enable more women entrepreneurs. Last thing that I would like to add is adopting a gender-based approach to cybersecurity and online regulations. So even though women are, when they enter the workplace or they set up their own companies, they face discrimination. And according to a recent LinkedIn study, more than 4 in 5 working women, especially in India, claim to have missed out on raise or promotion or work offer because of their gender, compared to other regional average maybe of 60%. So, I mean, 2/3 of the working women are facing discrimination at work because of family or household responsibilities. And that's a huge gap.
It is indeed a huge gap. And you brought up a number of extremely important points. And that's the digital universities creating a more accessible university, more accessible education. We had the Young Entrepreneurs panel, and one of the scary components that was brought up was that women have been left out of their education. This is right now. This is not in before. My daughters are in a middle school and high school level, and International Women's Day wasn't a thought. It wasn't something that was announced. 2 weeks ago, my daughter had a project. I believe it was a science project where they had to talk about somebody, and the people that they had to choose from, there was no women involved. So these are so many aha moments, and gender-based decisions, and trying to influence that at the very foundational level. To be able to walk into an incubator or an accelerator and told that you have to have men as part of your universal product, the way you're building. There are so many systemic problems, and that's why we're doing what we are doing today. Shay, this is why you've built this amazing incubator accelerator program. And I think that let's talk a little bit, let's move into we're talking a lot about the issues, and there's some amazing aha moments. Oh, before I do get to that, I almost forgot. Mansi, you did mention that women are asked questions differently. I did put an article in the chat there. Jacqueline Kennedy actually did a major research as part of her MBA on how female founders regardless of whether the investor is male or female, are asked preventative questions. And I want to take that out beyond just the investment platform and bring it out into our life. We are asked preventative questions. For the last number of years, I have been told how much I can't do things, how much I would be a terrible leader, how much I would be a terrible teacher at the same time as actually being a teacher. And I was so tired of being told what I couldn't do that I gotten back to the business of being awesome. And look what I've accomplished already. And that just takes a frame of changing the narrative. So when you're standing in front of that investor, when you're standing in front of those naysayers, take those preventative questions. And let's use an example. When you're told, oh my God, that's a very saturated market. You've got these competitors, you've got this competitor, you get this competitor. How are you going to compete in an industry that is so saturated? Turn that around to be promotional. Get that used car salesman hat on and just go for it. Oh, are you talking about my go-to-market strategy? All of a sudden, they only have two answers, two possibilities, yes or no, right? If they're saying no to that, they're not the right investor for you anyways. But chances are they're going to say yes and move forward. Use that same type of analogy for everything that you do, every aspect of your life. And Shay, I know this is something that you've worked with as well, with your accelerator. And I'm so excited because I've watched you kind of build this from idea as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the actionable change side of what you're doing?
Oh, I have no poker face. So when you guys are telling all these things, I'm like, oh, actionable, in terms of the actionable change side, what do you mean specifically, or what do you need
So
to make sure?
just as an example, I'm going to give two examples. So one is, so I've been a member of the Canadian Ski Patrol, trained in first aid. I've seen heart attacks. I taught first aid for a number of those years as well. We teach the universal signs and symptoms of a heart attack of being crushing sensation in the chest.
You're such a Girl Scout.
And radiation of pain up and down the left arm. These universal signs and symptoms do not apply to women, which is scary. So the point, I've never seen it actually present that way in a woman. And it's a massive problem because it's right infused into our medical system that there's a bigger problem there. The actionable change is tomorrow morning, we have an amazing founder who's built a cardio health platform specifically designed for women of color. So that would be actionable change. So that's what I mean. It's taking, and for us specifically, our aha moments, they're represented in all of these 14 panels. That's how Teresa and I have done these aha moments. Our actionable change is we've developed a valuation methodology that will change how startups start by making every company take a look at how it's being gender influenced. Yes.
And I have many. Okay. The one that I'm really excited about is approaching how to handle the biases that we encounter by sometimes very well-meaning investors who think that they are asking the right questions and understanding, because their main goal is to get return on their money, which for me, the whole investment thing is crazy anyway. It doesn't really work it doesn't even work for startups for the most part. I mean, only a small percentage actually excel after they get the funding. So first actionable change that we're going to be working on is addressing the biases and how to handle, like what you were saying earlier, the questions and taking a spin on it. And what I want to also do is build on our resilience. Women are naturally resilient anyway, but something happens, this silly imposter syndrome, when an investor or someone tries to tear down your idea, you start to second guess. Am I doing the right thing? What am I doing? Maybe they're right. That may be their right question. Part of our program will be to use the resilience we already have in so many different areas in this area as well, in the questioning those things where you're unsure about yourself. The other thing I want to do is, what I see in many accelerator programs is that they talk about leadership and building up your team, but they don't really, well, maybe not all of them. I haven't seen all accelerators, but from the ones that I've seen, they're not really helping those women become leaders. Some people are, not everyone's meant to be a leader. Some people have it naturally within them, and some people need to learn it. So part of what we're trying to do is take people from where they are right now and give them what they need in terms of leadership, because a lot of the problems that startups have, it starts with leadership and also starts with how you see yourself. And then it helps you make different decisions, just right decisions, not just for you, but for the organization, making decisions out of intuition and knowledge versus fear and misinformation. That's really where I can go on, because I love this question so much, but I'll stop.
And I think that that's really important. And it's, I love the way you kind of use that phrasing of use the resilience you already have. And that's it. We kind of, a lot of us suffer from that imposter syndrome. So to be able to take account for who you are and what you have, this is a big part of what we talked about when we were on the startup boards and advisory boards panel, is take account of all of the skills that you have, the assets that you have when you approach any of these situations, when you approach your company as a founder, when you approach your company as a startup board member or an advisor, or starting your incubator. Take account of all the skills that you have so that you can go and reference it when you have these people who might be saying, no, you can't do it, right? Take account, recognize your resilience, and move forward. Mansi, from your perspective then, what does actionable change look like? And let's add a little bit more into that in terms of what metrics should we be trying to pull forward to be able to track that we're actually doing something. And I'll give an example of what a metric might be. In the corporate environment, a metric is a percentage. So we need to have 50-50 females on this committee. What type of metrics should we be looking at in order to affect change? And what are some actionable changes first?
So this is not a conversation about maybe reservation or allocation of the, women-led startups or what, but we need to create structures where investment in women entrepreneurship can be rewarded. So just as a sustainable or impact investing is being incentivized around the world, there is this opportunity to do so for women-focused investments as well. So one way to incentivize such investment is if a higher carry or the share of any profits released by investors is offered for capital provided to women-led startups, maybe a part of government-led programs, or maybe including better gender diversity within the investors community, because studies have shown that women investors are 3x more likely to invest in women founders. So this is just a crucial to have a higher representation of women in the investor community. And from Indian perspective, why that is why Indian and foreign institutional investors are also looking at metrics of how we can actually female and underrepresented founders have their venture firm has supported them and their respective returns. And analyst programs, incubators, and VC firms should internally set and report on diversity targets, so on diversifying these targets, and maybe for the government-led fund of funds, which could look to channel more capital towards women investors as part of their programs.
And that's a really exciting point. We actually had with during our angels and VC panel yesterday, Edith Lovato had said, well, let's take a look at it from the tax incentive programs. If we put more tax incentive programs in place for women raising funds, and if we put more incentives in place for women who want to be angels or VCs, then you're going to get more women flooding the the ecosystem. And that should be, why don't we put a percentage on that? That's to be able to encourage that. This is not a universal thing. Again, we've gone down to 2% of female founders being funded. So there is a massive problem. So if we build an ecosystem at the government level, at the corporate level, let's just put it all at all levels, then things will start to change. How then do we change this at the corporate and or the government level? And should it be directly infused into incubators and accelerators? Should government be working with accelerators and incubators to help to foster this? And I'm going to go back to you, Mansi, because I know it seems to be a bit of a theme, and you've got a little bit of research and a little bit of your hand on the pulse with India as well. Is there something that you can do to affect change there?
So there is an effective change. So the last thing that I saved for the webinar is the positive impacts and the good impacts that we are at. So we are seeing the attraction in companies like Tata Consulting Services, Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra. These are some Indian global companies. And most of them are now chasing a target of 45 to 50% of female employees in their total headcount within these upcoming quarters, with several initiatives lined up like increased campus and lateral hiring, building leadership pipelines, and skill focused on women. So the trend of companies is increasing the number of female employees, which were existing from 30% to 45% in less than 24 months. And if we talk about MNCs and startups, the chief executive serves are also, focusing on gender and how we can incorporate geographical and ethnicity diversity. And inclusion and diversity is a key point of agenda for not only startups, but everyone who is a part of board members now.
And we're in an environment now where gender diversity and even geographic diversity is no longer something that should be holding us down. And Shay, from your point, because you actually you straddle two different countries, so you're in the EU, Netherlands, and then you're also part of the US. So you've got that bigger influence. And is there any way for you to be able to influence the government on both sides?
It's hard. That's a hard one. And what always, it's what's in it for them, isn't it? It's always that question. And with governments, it's always about, more productivity, more jobs, more people to tax, more ways to gain taxes. So, I mean, part of what we try to do is talk to people that are in those positions of making those decisions and seeing how we can work together. In the Netherlands, specifically in Amsterdam, there is a startup Amsterdam community or organization that is part of the Netherlands, and they are extremely active in doing more with startups in general. And I've connected with them to work with female founders, and see what we could do them. But because I really want my accelerator to be more international, it means I have to dig a little bit deeper and reach out to the larger EU community, European Union, and see what subsidies or what grants or what initiatives that they have going on that are helping women. I recently connected with another woman, Lubna, who has advisory position with them. So we're working on how can we affect change. That's really what I think that's really what all of us are here trying to do. We're trying to make an impact and create some change. For the US, there's so much wrong over there right now. I can't. I may have to come back to them in a little bit, but right now my focus is here, EU, and the Netherlands, actually.
And you have my full support. We have a wonderful ecosystem in the US and in the EU. So you have our support in driving change. And I do have some pretty spectacular connections in the US that can help drive this change, as well as in the EU. We're going to be changing how startups start globally. And I do hope that actually I don't even hope, because I know you ladies are on board on that point. Has this conversation galvanized your opinion or your view of gender, or are we just getting started? Mansi.
I think yes, it did. So everyone talks about women empowerment and go girl and everything, but when you actually self introspect and then gather your thoughts, that oh, and it your aha moment that oh shit, this is actually happening and it's actually affecting the society. So not only our present but our future is also getting affected by it. That was a major turn point, and which made me realize yes, gender data gap is real, and if we don't rectify this or uh, improve this, this can actually create and affect millions of people life, so not only future generations but our current generation as well.
And Shay, has this galvanized, or are we just getting started?
Honestly, I feel these conversations are always great. And hopefully they're always inspiring to anyone who's listening. What I'm hoping is that we're galvanizing, because I'm tired of talking about it.
Make change.
I'm tired of talking about this change. I'm tired of, trying to convince people. I'm really annoyed that we went down to 2% for female foundership. And there's so much talk the last 2 years about how we want diversity and we want to help women. And then to see the numbers just go lower, I'm just disgusted. But so I'm hoping we are in that I hope we're in the doing phase. That's really what I'm looking for.
So what does that next step then look like from your perspective, Shay? What are you going to be leaving this panel and be accountable for as your next step to this change?
Man, there's so many things. But the first next step is to, I'm looking for new ways to make this information or this space more accessible to women, and not just accessible. Sometimes you just don't know about it. So we need to get that information out more. I can't tell you how many times women don't know that there's accelerators or incubators or what they can do for them. And they're trudging along, doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know. And the information isn't always readily available to them, but also putting that information in front of them and helping them take action on it. That's my next first step for me.
That's good. That's good. And Mansi, from your perspective, what is your next step to make change, to affect change?
I feel I should, female founders should. So I have a personal motto: fail fast, fail often. So whenever you have to start, you have to fail, you have to stand up and start again. So that's the only way of growth and learning. And the way only I see it is, it's okay, you'll fail, but you'll have to get up and work on your strength, work on your weaknesses, and get back. That's the only way to move ahead.
Mm-hmm. And what does that fail fast, fail often? What does that look from your perspective? What is your next tangible? I'll give you an example. So what we're doing is we are. It came out of a panel last time. We're creating the Breakout Room, which will be available May 3rd, where we're going to be bringing in actually any founder is welcome in there. And we're going to help with the ideation stage to be able to build in gender influence to companies. So that's a conversation we'll have. It'll be an environment like this, but it's proactive. We're changing how startups start. And that's our actionable change right there, is creating that once a month, that the Breakout Room, we're calling it, to be able to invite companies in to get.
I think you're doing it, you have to do it more often. So once in a fortnight would be better. And
Oh,
I'll make sure that
bandwidth. Well, let's create a community of breakout rooms so that we can have that influence on companies, and then bring them into our accelerators, bring them into our programs, and from there, and have that conduit to the support networks that kind of surround it. But
I love that idea, and I want to be part of it because I was already thinking I want to do something like this where you just drop in, you do some breakout, and it's such a great way to like just start moving forward.
yes,
That's really the where it is. So when you do that, sign me. Let me know. I'm in it.
I will indeed. I will indeed.
likewise for me. So I'll happy to connect, happy to contribute in any possible way wherein I can.
That's spectacular. Now, I think this is a really, really good question to end on. Who's doing the gender idea? Who's doing it right now? And Mansi, I'll start with you.
I think I'll leave Shia to start with. I'll, jot down my thoughts, and so over to you, Shia.
I really, well, Pantagonia is one of my favorite. I mean, it's run by a woman, so it's an obvious one, but she's done such a good job in not just growing her company, but being really mindful about the impact and the things that she's doing. And not for nothing, not every woman should be a leader, founder, what have you. But when we get there, sometimes we do it so good. So I think she's one person or one entity that is, or one organization that is doing it right. There's so many that look like they're doing it right on the face, and then when you go behind the scenes, it's not what they're doing. There was another one that I was like, yes, that's it, but I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head. But Pantagonia is always my go-to for go-to examples of what to do and how to do it.
Nice. And Mansi, can you think of somebody? I'll just off the top, because it's attached to a book for me, The Moment of Lift, and Melinda. I forget her maiden name.
Which one's Melinda? Melinda Gates?
Yes.
Who's not Gates anymore. Gotcha. I can't remember her maiden name.
But she's got actionable change and has been doing so for quite some time, and right down to how she funds things. So I think that if you have influence, you should be about affecting change. So I think that would be on a large scale somebody that I would be as a go-to person.
I completely agree. So, we have one of our first female billionaire called Falguni Nair, who founded Nykaa, which is an online makeup brand. And, back when she started, nobody ever thought of buying makeup online, at least within India. And she just revolutionized that concept and made it accessible, affordable, approachable, which actually, make you think about thought leadership, made you think about innovation and how you can leverage your network to actually accelerate your growth.
That's spectacular. Accelerate your growth, and to be able to be an influencer, but also to inspire actionable change. And this wouldn't be happening without this book. So right now, she is probably the most inspirational person for me, which is Caroline Criado Perez, Invisible Women: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. It opened my eyes to so many things, and that I have to thank her for. I did try to reach out to her, but she was definitely somebody as an inspiration to me. Also, recently, I had the pleasure of listening to a guest speaker called Sarah Lacey, and she has a book called A Uterus is a Feature, Not a Bug, which is the best title ever. And she inspired me to think differently as well. And any opportunity that we have to inspire somebody to think differently, I think that's what our actionable change, that's how we should approach society. That's how we should approach everything that we do and how we look at things, because it's not just the men that we're trying to change change and influence and how things are designed from. It's also the women. So we talk about aha moments. as I mentioned, with the cardio side of things, that's something that people don't think of. Medical research is not being done. Car design, chair design, we are physically built differently. So that's where we have to start infusing these into our company. I like to leave this everything on this last thing, but before I do, thank you, Shay. Thank you, Mansi. You have been inspirational and inspiring with your words, and I know that going forward, you guys will be part of. Sorry, you girls. We're not supposed to use the universal guys. You ladies will be part of the design of change. When I was very young, I lived around the corner from my grade school, and I was running after my friend, Hilda, 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 Hilda. And I got up to her and realized it wasn't her. So I just kept running and I kept waving, Hilda, 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 until I was out of earshot. So ladies, keep running and waving. You will get to where you need to go. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.